Hey, you. Folks have been dreaming about mechs and Star Citizen since before I hopped into the verse, and now we got our very first iteration that CI dropped with no warning. Just a quick close-up camera tease the day before. Got a lot of surprises. The ARGO A.T.L.S, which I think most folks would just call the Atlas, is in 3.24.1 PTU with spawn access open to Evocati and Wave 1 PTU testers now, so poetry snaps for that. Let's go ahead and start clean with the basics. It's like an upgraded loader from Aliens with some trade-offs, and we'll get to those later. There's no need to power it on, you just hop in and start walking. I found that sometimes it won't move and you'll have to re-enter it to get it going. Not a big deal once you realize what you got to do, but hopefully that's ironed out pretty quick. The entry and startup animation, pretty dope. It's a lot like the Aliens movie, but I think that's less of them copying it, more of, well, how else would you do it really? The walking animation is beautifulissimo, no clipping anywhere except if you're wearing a backpack. It's got the classic 1980s, 90s stompy movement rather than the Avatar and Boston Dynamics too fluid movement. The default walking speed is pretty slow and sprint is slightly faster, but you're not going to beat anybody on foot. Could definitely use some faster movement or maybe lengthen the stride of the steps. Hell, throw some go-go gadget rocket skates on it. Right now, if you got to walk across a large or extra large hangar, you're going to need some auto run love. It doesn't stop on a dime, so be careful where you step. There's no jump, there's no crouch, but it's a cargo loader, not a 1980s aerobics instructor. Seems to have no problems making it up and down hills though. Would love an exploration or mining variant that move faster and tore up hills like this. Seems to have a meter on the left that lights up when you're walking up an incline, but didn't do it on the Hercules ramp until I parked it somewhere that gave it a steeper grade. The bottom left also lights up when you turn on the tractor beam, so it might have something to do with power consumption that'll be added in later. Surprisingly, you can use an ASOP terminal while you're in the suit, so that helps out when you need to swap out ships in your hangar, then stage cargo boxes while you're waiting for the ship to come up the hangar elevator. Sound effects, beautimous. Got the hydraulics and deep thump with every step, so it sounds heavy, authentic, and fresh out the movies. There's no lights mounted on this, so you got to use your helmet light. That's a missed opportunity for some dope machinima. And for some reason, you can't use the advanced cam to zoom in and out or retract the cam up, down, left, and right in third person, but you can still change the focal length and orbit the camera around it. We're missing some photo and video opportunities here, CIG. In case you were wondering, no, it doesn't work in zero gravity. So moving cargo goes something like this. You aim at the box, left click, then the tractor beam on the right arm pulls the box towards you. While it's on the way, you look around to see a little ghost preview of where you want to set the box down. When the preview's on the spot you want, you click in and the box moves into that spot. Easy stuff. At first you might think that's not as hands-on as you'd like to work. Some of you might want to go as far as adjusting the speed of the tractor beam or just being able to manipulate the boxes manually. Trust me when I say it's a lot faster the way it's set up. While your suit is pulling the container to you, you're already picking a spot to set it down, and it makes the process pretty fluid and quick, which is what you want when you got hundreds of cargo units worth of boxes to move. I gotta say, it goes Amazon style and handles the cargo pretty rough. I'm sure part of it's a skill issue, but trying to set boxes neatly together when not on a grid can send the previous box flying if you're not careful. If you have some fragile cargo, you might want to consider getting out of the mech and using a handheld tractor beam for smaller spaces, especially when you're in your cargo hold, since the Atlas suspends the boxes over your head, which will bump into the ceiling. Carrying them above you frees your view up to see where you want to move things, but I imagine your ship may be taking a little bit of damage with every bump. Also, you can middle click to straighten out the preview box position, which helps, but it would be a little nicer if when you clicked it a second time, it rotated another 90 degrees for when you want to straighten the box out horizontally. Seems best to load ships from the outside when you can, especially Spirit-sized ships and smaller, but even when you do, you end up making little micro adjustments with your mouse, and it's difficult to try and find a sweet spot to put the cargo down, more so the further back in the hold you're loading. Even in the Hercules, there's some spots that could be a nightmare to stack if you don't remember to fill it in a specific way. If you're loading 16 SCU crates or bigger, it's great for moving a bunch of boxes in bulk, but when you need to finesse things in tight spots, it's best to get out and use your hand tools, so make sure you bring a tractor beam rifle with you. Picking up vehicles and bigger crates is a little rough at the moment, and sometimes you'll end up dragging them across the ground. You can get around this with boxes by holding the right mouse and flinging them into the air, then catching them, but it doesn't seem to work on vehicles. Surprisingly, what I've heard is that it doesn't fit in the one place you think will be its natural habitat, the Reclaimer salvage processing deck. I didn't have a Reclaimer to try it out myself, but they say it can fit in the salvage hold, but not in the room where all the boxes shoot out and has enough headspace to actually move things around. You can't walk it into to an Avenger Titan, but I'm pretty sure you can handle 8 SCU of cargo without it. The smallest ship I personally fitted in was the Cuddy Black. At first, something was preventing it from fitting in the Cuddy, but when I crab walked into it sideways, I was able to make it. Same thing sometimes happen with the Hercules. Apparently some bug that needs to be cleaned up. The Origin 400i has always had issues fitting vehicles because of the low profile of the ship plus the rear facing turret, but wouldn't you know, I did manage to get the Atlas in it. Then I realized pretty quick the Atlases check in, but they don't check out. End up flying it up to a space station so I could abandon it like a bunch of Xbox studios, but then I got the idea to tractor it out, and that was good enough since it's shorter once you exit it. Don't walk them onto the platforms by the hangar elevator either. Listen, I just want to see if you use the inventory kiosk while in the suit, aight? And no, you can't use them. Like I mentioned, they fit in the spirit, but it's a little tight in there once you get to moving the boxes around. I'm anxious to see how loading up the Zeus CL is once we get our hands on that pretty soon here. If you forget or somehow lose one, it's 2.5 minutes to claim it, 30 seconds if you expedite it, so you won't have to wait around long if you need it and don't already have one at your hangar. At the moment, you can't spawn one from spaceports or from ground vehicle ASOP terminals. You can spawn them at outposts, so not a huge deal since it's easier to spawn them in the hangars anyway, except for a few occasions where you would like to just park your ship outside the front of New Babbage or the Lowerfield gates and pull one out real quick. Like, really, I think we're all looking forward to CIG enable us to spawn the Atlas as well as ground vehicles in the freight elevators. That'll be a good quality of life improvement across the board. There's no way to lock them, so don't leave them out in the open where other players are at. Some ship ramp and elevator buttons can't be accessed while using it, like the Cuddy Black side doors and ramp. I think this is from data mining, but it looks like besides the orange paint, white, gray, blue, UPS brown, and of course Aliens Loader Yellow will be available soon. No word on the price point at the time of this vid's writing, but I'm hoping this is on the low end of the double-digit spectrum. I'm entertaining guesses on what it'll actually come out to. Throw those in the comments. Side note, for the 3.24.1 patch, there's a quality of life update that keeps your place in the ASOP when you go to deliver or claim a ship. Makes it so you don't have to scroll back down to find that particular ship after you hit claim or deliver. Small thing, but something we needed that makes quite a difference. If you don't care, it's because your ASOP don't scroll. Where do you buy up a bunch of ships and vehicles in game? The A.T.L.S is definitely a solid addition to a space trucker's cargo hold. Small enough that you can fit it in most ships where you would actually need its services, including the Cuddy Black. Smaller ships ain't gonna cut it, but there's really no point using it to load anything less than 30-40 SCU anywhere. Where it really shines is in bigger hangars or anywhere where you have to move boxes a long distance. Once you grab a box, you can move it over 100 meters away in just a few seconds. There's times where you wish you had forks like the Aliens Loader to make more deliberate movements. The box placement previews do a pretty decent job of helping you get the boxes into an organized state, but there's other times where they just won't line up in the spot that you want. You kind of wish you had some forks to just manually place things down. I'm sure the previews will see some improvement, but maybe we'll see an attachment for the left arm for manual placement. It is slow though. When you got a decent amount of distance to traverse, even anything over 50 meters, you kind of dread having to get in the Atlas because it's a hike. Plus the startup animation, as cool as it is and relatively fast, when you pair that with the movement speed, sometimes it's just like, I just do it on foot, unless you got enough boxes to move to make it worth it. When you do have a lot of units to move, the speed and distance you can move boxes saves you a lot of time despite the slower movement. I think where it'll really look marvelous is when you run a cargo with a buddy. The Atlas can clear out the freight elevators extremely quick and get the boxes staged next to the ship where the other person can use the tractor beam to load the ship neatly while the Atlas makes its way back to the ship to help. A lot of folks, including myself, are kind of surprised to see it working so well as soon as they hit the verse. If they can build on this, polish up the cargo previews, and maybe throw in a faster movement option, it'll be the bee's knees for the real OGs. Once everybody's got over the initial excitement of being able to hop in the hot new sci-fi-ness, will it stay in rotation or will it start collecting dust? Folks who are mostly into combat, they may buy it, try it, then melt it since they don't have much use for it to begin with. For medium-sized ship owners, it'll probably start spending more time in the hangar than on mission. Not necessarily warehoused in storage, but more likely sitting near the freight elevator just waiting for its chance. For the most part, it'll probably just be easier to park up in front of the freight elevator and do a quick load, unload by hand if you're in a medium ship. On a lot of medium-sized ships, an Atlas could just be in the way, or worse, taking up cargo space. So 6 months down the road, I don't expect to find them on Spirits, Cuddys, and Zeuses. Now Reclaimers, Hercules, and above is likely to be a different story. Moving hundreds or more of SCU of cargo ain't really what you want to be doing by hand too often, if at all. Having all the tools you can that help you get the job done faster is an investment to buy back some of your time and the ability to get to the next job to earn even more credits. The appearance of the Atlas kind of makes me think they might be having a difficult time with the hover trolley. The mule is useless too, so maybe they decided since the mech suit's in a good place, why not bring it out to save the masses from being overworked on the hangar floor? Or maybe I just haven't had enough mint chocolate chip ice cream and cookies to think straight. Anywho, when ships like the Merchantman and the Ironclad roam the verse, you'll need every tool you can get your hands on to get those things loaded up for a run. And at that point, it'll take more than a single Atlas to make that work. Seeing a crew of Atlases stomping through a hangar won't be unusual when you consider ships that take 1,000 or even upwards of 2,800 to load in the hangar. I mean, you got the whole series that caps out near 100,000, but those get loaded outside space stations, so that's another story. The point is that medium ship owners will eventually abandon it, but the Atlas place in the verse is solidified amongst large volume space truckers. It's hard not to see this solid new addition to the verse and not be reminded of the Titan suit that probably everybody except me is excited about. If you're unfamiliar, the Titan suit's a big bulky mech suit built for combat, battling out with small ships and inevitably everything else on the ground, like people on foot and ground vehicles. Not really my cup of Earl Grey, but I get the appeal. I still think Titanfall is one of the best games I played. Plus, I can't really deny that it'd be pretty hot to storm a hostile outpost, run up the kill streak. Besides a shooty bang bang suit, there's also been mention of a mech suit that's for ship repairs. That's more my speed, especially if it has EVA maneuvering thrusters. That would be critical equipment to bring on something like the Caterpillar after escaping the local thuggery in Pyro with no friendly repair sites nearby. It's been a little over a year since any mech suit development has been mentioned, so who knows when we might see the next one, or they could drop a surprise release on us at any time like they did with the Atlas. Big Pop Rocks and Margaritas shout out to the good folks supporting the Dig That and Space Sim Marts. Special shout out to my executives, Eyes Open 2018, The Huntress, Lone Wolf, and Citizen Aaron. And big love to everybody supporting via Patreon, YouTube members, and super chatters. Also, thanks for checking out my new Drippy. My name is Dig That, and somebody needs to see this message on your dog tags. Fly dirty, citizen.